Hey y'all, I'm Blaine Howard. This is another great episode of ETX Rocks featuring Twang Darkly.
From the unknown to the stars, from the couch to the car, from the unheralded and the unheard, to the legends and beyond, it's where we all belong. Yes, this is where it all starts. From every genre, from every plane, this is where the music's played. So tune right in, won't you bring a friend? This is where it all begins. Welcome to the show, let the music flow of every style and creed. And you can bet your socks that ETX rocks, ETX rocks.
Hi, I'm Louise, producer of the ETX ROCKS Show and your host for today. And I am here with 2/3 of the trio called Twang Darkly. And I'm here with Michael and Joel. Hey guys, how are y'all?
Oh, great. Happy to be here.
So how long have you guys been performing?
Well, as a trio, we've been Twang Darkly since 2010. Individually, we've obviously both been performing a lot longer than that, till back in the dim and distant past. I probably started playing around 1988 was when I first picked up Dulcimer and guitar and harmonica and some things.
Yeah, I started when in '82. I got my first guitar.
Okay. So when did each of you individually, when did you know that music was going to be the way you were going to express yourself?
I'll let Joel take that one first.
I was in the violin program in middle school, and I remember trying to play like "Smoke on the Water" on the violin or something like that. And that's when I realized I should get a guitar, and so I got a guitar after that, and no looking back. So I mean, it wasn't anything that it was just something I enjoyed. You know, I just never put a guitar down. It drove my family crazy. I always had a guitar in my lap.
For me, it was a bit more circuitous route. When I was the age that Joel was when he first picked up the guitar, I was into stop motion animation. I make old claymation films and all this kind of stuff, and that was what I was really into. And I did that for a number of years, and all the while my brother Andy was just playing his guitar all the time and driving us all crazy. And eventually I sort of ginned up an interest in that, and by the time I was in high school, I discovered the Dulcimer and harmonica, and I started listening to some things that really spoke to me. I was listening to a lot to Nebraska, the Bruce Springsteen album. I discovered Michael Hedges somehow, and that was kind of an unusual application of a guitar, and so I started encountering these new things that really intrigued me, and ended up getting steered in that direction instead by the time I was in college.
Joel, what about some of your influences early on?
I had an older sister that kind of gave me the classic rock education, you know, of the '80s, Led Zeppelin, and I mean, obviously not current, but you know, that's what she listened to, Van Halen and all that stuff. And then when punk and new wave started reaching Lafayette, Louisiana, that's when I started kind of rebelling against my sister, of kind of like Michael, going in a different direction. So I started to get into weirder music and more experimental music, and even going into non-rock type things to you know, be different than my big sister.
So you guys brought your instruments with you today, and you're going to play a couple of songs for us. Tell us about this first one. It's actually a medley of a couple of songs put together.
Right. Well, the instrument I brought with me that we play on this first song is derived from an Appalachian instrument called the Appalachian Dulcimer. This particular realization of that instrument, however, is a bit different. I built it myself. It's made from a gourd, and it has a chromatic fretboard, hence the name Chromatic Dulcimer. Sometimes I call it the Martian Dulcimer, just for kicks. And this first song, because it's has some suggestion of Appalachian music in it, but yet is going to an entirely different place called Appalachian Rocket Science. And the piece we've melded it with is another one from the same album. It's an album called Nebula, which we put out last year. It's called We Navigate by Uncertain Stars, which I think is fairly evident if you look at the news.
They call this rural space music. We're really excited to show you guys Twang Darkly. Check this out. And now we are back with Twang Darkly, or 2/3 of Twang Darkly. Speaking of that, we've got a member missing today. Why don't you guys introduce us to him?
Well, we've got our drummer, Lane Bayless, who is not here with us today. But if he were, you'd be very excited because he is an amazing drummer, and we're lucky to have him. He's the second Twang Darkly drummer. Our first, Troy Messina, was a physics professor who had a very precise notion of how to hit a drum. Very good, and but he left us to go to teach in Berea up in Kentucky. And we both knew immediately that the person we had to have join us was Lane Bayless, who is extremely creative, a lot of fun.
Keeps us on our toes.
Yeah, he does his own thing, and we try to keep up.
Now, most musicians, they write their music based on the instruments that they have at hand, the instruments that they've learned, they've grown up with, or developed an affinity for. But you kind of do things a little bit differently, not just with your compositions, but also with your instruments, which you touched on a little bit with the dulcimer here that you've made. So what is your composition process like?
Well, I do work with instruments I have at hand, of course, but I might write a piece on the guitar and end up playing it on the dulcimer. I use a lot of open tunings on my different instruments, and I tend to tune them in similar ways such that what I play on one translates to another one fairly easily. But oftentimes what happens is there's a theme that I'm able to articulate maybe through improvisation, and if it keeps turning up when I'm sort of noodling around and practicing, eventually I'll see about welding that into some sort of set of pieces that are maybe connected. So lately I tend to write more suites of things that are connected than just simply one-off pieces. And then when I take it to Joel, which is usually the first thing to happen, his input ends up steering it in a different direction quite frequently, and it's kind of an iterative process that drives things in a way that suits us both, I think. I hope.
Yeah, and the title track, the titular song from our latest CD was just a random improvisation. We were recording and we had songs that we were going to work on, and it just happened. We've never played it since. We just did it that one take, that one time, and that's how that one happened. So
it was really Lane's fault that particular piece happened. We had just finished recording a thing, and he did some crazy drum roll, and that inspired me to strike something on the electric dulcimer I happened to be playing, and Joel joined right in, and we got a neat piece that we call Nebula, which we can never recreate quite as it is, but we end up doing something kind of off the cuff like that in most shows. And
It's just a random explosion of brilliance, huh?
there were lots of random explosions in those recording takes, and most of them weren't brilliant, but that one was the closest to brilliant we got, so I kept it.
So something I'm curious about when I was doing some research looking into you, the handmade instruments, what inspired you to start creating your own?
Two things that come to me off the top of my head that I can say are the explanation for me creating my own instruments. One very simple factor is that I like to have a lot of different things to play, and instruments are expensive. So that's a small piece of the puzzle. The second piece of the puzzle is literally this. If you want to have a chromatic dulcimer made from a gourd, I like gourds for some reason, you pretty much have to make it yourself. I've seen one other gourd dulcimer out in a flea market one time. It was interesting, not unlike this, a body sort of grafted onto the top of a gourd cut in half. It was much cruder than what I've got here. It wasn't really playable, but the idea intrigued me. Similarly, we use electric instruments. An electric dulcimer is not something that you can go out and buy somewhere. The acoustic instruments are nice, and they're great to play in a house setting like we're recording in now, but if you're in a bar or someplace where you need to be loud, an acoustic instrument's very hard to amplify in a way that sounds like the instrument. So early on in the activities of Twang Darkly, I decided I'm going to be mostly electric when we play out places, but that meant I had to build some instruments, because the ones you can buy dulcimers that have piezo pickups in them, but they sound like piezo pickups, and that's just not a sound that I like. I don't know if anybody knows what I'm talking about when I say that, but it's kind of a somewhat quacky, brittle sort of sound to my ear, and I don't care for it in an amplified context.
Yeah, it kind of changes the personality
Yeah.
of the instrument.
Yeah. Whereas with an electric instrument, it has a personality that's just its own, and it leads you to places you might not otherwise go.
Okay, but those aren't the only instruments that you've made. Why don't you tell us a little bit about the flutes that you have too?
Yeah, we were talking about our musical points of origin earlier. An important thing early for me in my musical expansion was I got into Jethro Tull when I was in college, and of course Ian Anderson, the frontman for Jethro Tull, is a multi-instrumentalist, plays acoustic guitar and most famously flute. Generally, most people imagine him standing on one leg as he plays the flute, and whistles and all kinds of things like that. And as I sort of pursued finding out more about that stuff and the music that inspired it, lots of English folk music and stuff, that was a sound I really wanted to be able to recreate, and so I acquired some bamboo flutes when I was in college. My dad bought me one as a gift, actually, while I was in college, and I used to take it down to a place called the Free Expression Tunnel, which is on the campus of NC State where I went. And it's this tunnel on the railroad tracks. It's a pretty long tunnel, and they let people paint whatever graffiti they want in there, and I would go down there and play flute because it had these great acoustics, nice echo chamber. But again, nice bamboo flutes are hard to acquire, so eventually I decided, rather than keep shelling out lots of money to try out flutes that I ended up often not liking, sometimes I did, I had some bamboo growing in my backyard, so maybe I can do that. And many discarded pieces of bamboo later, I had some working flutes.
So learning how to create an instrument and get the sounds that you need from it and get the right tones, that must have been quite a learning experience.
It involves a lot of failure.
A lot of trial and error.
Yeah, I think Yoda says in the most recent Star Wars that failure is a great teacher. So that's how I learn mostly, is through messing up pieces of wood and bamboo.
Going Yoda, huh?
Well, Joel, why don't you tell us how you came to meet Michael, or how this turned into, from two different individual musicians, into creating art together?
We had a friend. He was also a professor at the same place, Centenary, where our drummer was a professor, and he was not a musician, but he fancied himself a musician, and he would invite musicians to his house on Fridays for a weekly jam. Just come one, come all, and it was always just kind of a revolving cast of characters. And Michael and I were just talking about this not too long ago, because it's just the type of environment where Michael would not go. I think he doesn't like to do the jam. He doesn't like to go do the open mic things and all that stuff. And for somehow the Force brought us, going back to Yoda, the Force allowed him to get up the gumption to go, and we he was playing a dulcimer and I was playing the guitar, and we just gelled really well together. And I remember going home and excitedly telling my wife what a great experience it was. I played with this guy on a dulcimer, because I've never played with somebody on the dulcimer, but we kind of just were just really gelling well together when we were just improvising, jamming. And just a month, 2 weeks later, I don't know, he emailed me and said, "Hey, do you remember me?" And we somehow got a gig before we had a band.
Yeah.
So we had to do a lot of work, a lot of many-hour multiple rehearsals before this show and stuff, and we had Troy, our drummer. So just the three of us got together and started to learn all these songs. And instrumental music is hard to learn when he said like, all right, here's 30 songs that I have, and a regular, quote unquote, regular song with lyrics, you can go, oh, this is the song that has that chorus, Don't You Love Me Baby, and you can go, oh, that's Don't You Love Me Baby. But how do you, in your brain, go, okay, this song's called Blue Rover, this one's called Martian Archaeology, this one's called whatever, and so it was difficult at first. And so when we were first starting out, okay, which one is that? And he'd play, oh, okay, that one.
Yeah.
Because there's
the one that goes.
and so we've been playing out ever since then. And so yeah, it was just kind of a great random thing that brought us together.
Well, Joel, when I first met him, he sometimes likes to do sort of unusual things on the guitar. And I remember the first time we played together, he would get hooked on a single phrase and just play it to death in a way that was very amusing, and just he was not going to be deterred by what the fellow over there was doing on the keyboard or what anybody else was doing. He'd found this riff and he's going to stick on it.
Going to own it.
And it worked really well with the dulcimer because the dulcimer you often drone strings and stuff. So he was creating this sort of repetitive, almost droning environment that gelled really well with what I was doing, and we had a lot of fun with it. And I think there was sort of recognition between us that we're just going to keep doing this, whatever he does over there, because the person he's referring to really just loved to go to town playing fairly random stuff on the keyboard. So, it was kind of a sunrise sort of a thing. It was a lot of fun for us. And a few weeks later, as he says, I called him, and I called him because somebody had called me to ask, hey, you play dulcimer, right? I need somebody to do a show with dulcimer music. And I was like, who is this? This can't be real. This must be a crank call. Nobody wants a dulcimer concert. But they were for real, and they wanted to hire us and pay us to play a music concert with dulcimer music, which was the strangest thing I'd imagined happening, really. And I had no idea of forming a band, because I just thought nobody would want to. But once we started doing it, it seemed like a natural thing to do. And now we don't care if anybody wants to hear it or not. We're going to do it.
So what sort of venues do you usually get brought into with your style of music?
Living rooms.
Often living rooms, yes. We do a lot of art events. That's one of our mainstays is doing stuff for the Arts Council and openings for artists, having shows at galleries and stuff like that. We sometimes will do something like a bar. There's a bar in Ruston. We often, whenever we'll play out Sundown Tavern. But there's a place in Shreveport called Mini Cine. We do things at several times a year. And Mini Cine is great if anybody out there in the Shreveport area is looking for some place to see some interesting music. It's like its own fringe festival running all the time, just about. So we're very excited to play there. But quite frankly, it's hard to book us to play places because for some reason folks don't really seem to get the idea of instrumental music, which puzzles me. So often I've heard like, wait, you don't sing? How can that be? What? I only like music with words. And I just really can't wrap my head around looking at things that way. But a lot of people seem to believe that. I think once they hear us, they might be surprised to find they enjoy us. And I think that's happened at a number of gigs that people seemed reticent about. I don't know what you guys are doing, but they like it anyway,
Well, have you ever thought about incorporating lyrics into your music?
Prior to the modern Twang Darkly era, I used to write songs with words and stuff, but now, quite honestly, I've kind of got my back up about the whole, like, music has to have words things, and I'm just going to do what I do.
Well, I can tell you, just even from the research that I've done and what I've listened to, Twang Darkly makes it very apparent that lyrics are not necessary to evoke emotion. I mean, in fact, there are a lot of circumstances where the lyrics take away from that connection to the soul that someone can have through music.
I feel that way when I'm listening to music. Sometimes I find that I wish the lyrics were better, or I wish the lyrics were about something that resonated with how the music's making me feel. And I guess I like the idea of sort of getting out of the way and letting people sort of allow the music to take them where they'll go. We supply titles and sometimes even visuals and stuff. We've done projections and stuff with, for instance, our Martian archaeology project. But instrumental music really can be sort of a soundtrack for you as you listen to it, and it can resonate with how you feel and your experiences, and that sort of melds with what we're projecting, and it creates this emergent experience that I think can be unique and compelling. Do you think so?
Absolutely, yeah. No, it's like people. I always imagine people having their own little movies in their head while we're playing, because that's what I do when I listen to abstract music or free jazz or things like that. You just kind of go where your brain goes, and let the music guide you.
Yeah, my daughter and I were actually listening to some of your songs on the way to the store earlier this morning, and this was our first opportunity to really talk about the music, because she's heard some separate of me and I've heard some separate of her, and we were listening together, and she's describing this image that she has in her mind of what this song is about, kind of this gorgeous southwestern landscape. She's like, I hear the desert in this song. And
well, she might have actually heard the desert in the song, because a great deal of them are sort of inspired by desert landscapes. I spend a lot of time out in Nevada and Utah and places in the summer. In fact, in 2015, I was an artist in residence at Red Rock Canyon, and Joel came out and joined me. We did a couple of little concerts in the canyon. One, we hiked out to this sort of cave location and had some people hike out with us, and we performed there. And another one we did in the visitor center for the canyon. So there's a lot of our music that is directly inspired by those landscapes, and I think it fits really well with our instrumentation and sort of that sort of rusty sound that we can have at times.
I think that it's amazing that without the lyrics, without any words to direct somebody, with just the sound of the music, the sound of the instruments, that you can guide someone in a particular path, and they're picking up exactly what you're expressing, even without those words involved. I think that takes a lot of skill, a lot of talent.
Well, thank you. It makes me happy to hear that somebody had that experience.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Something else that's pretty unique about your music is there's not a lot of structure there. And where a lot of musicians can see a lack of structure as something detrimental to music, you guys seem to open that up as a freedom for more expression. Whether it's, that lack of structure in the composition, or the decisions to take different types of instruments and creating your own instruments in order to produce a sound that no one else has, or maybe to just fit that whatever you have going on in your mind, to kind of just bring that to reality. So have you ever tried to kind of fit your music down into cultural norms?
I'm going to let Joel speak on this first, because he probably has to think about structure in more than I do in some ways to follow what it is I'm doing.
Yeah, Michael definitely has different ideas. Like, I forget what song on Nebula there's an extra beat in it, and so it's a weird time structure. So we have to kind of do a 4+1 on one section of the song, as opposed to the typical 4/4 time. But yeah, but that kind of comes from my background. I like experimental stuff. I like jazz. I like the abstractness of not always having to play this one note in this one part. We do have songs that are pretty structured, but within that structure, we have a lot of freedom. And Michael, I think, trusts me and Lane enough. He rarely says, no, don't do that or whatever. He's like, wow, that was weird, but it was cool, and Lane's the king of weird but cool. So when we're doing a song, he just has all these weird percussion things, and he'll just throw something or drop something or bang something weird, and the first time you hear it, you go, what the heck? It just sounds so weird. And then when he does it a second time within the song, you're like, okay, somehow that works. Let's just keep going. You know what I mean? So that I feel is like a a great gift for me of being able to play with Michael and Lane is that, they're not, because playing the same thing night after night, year after year would get kind of boring. With the song we just did, Martian
Mars Ability.
Mars Ability or Appalachian Rocket Science, if we would do multiple takes, y'all would, very easily hear differences within the song. The structure's kind of there, but we have the freedom to change it up within it. And when the part about I forgot the exact word you used, the cultural
norms.
Cultural norms, that we don't even think about that. We know we're not going to be playing at the casinos in Shreveport.
Right.
We're not going to be playing at the bars, playing the songs that people love. So we don't even think about that. We kind of happily fly our freak flag.
Yeah, our spirit animal, spirit guide, not animal, is his son Rob. And he's a very famous proponent of open structured music, and we've taken that to heart. I think a lot of what we do has more structure, from my point of view, than folks realize, but there's such a potential on top of it for improvisation that it comes across as, between two, what to me essentially structurally are two verses that are essentially the same. They come across as being very different within the same piece, perhaps because of what he's doing, or even a slight variation in what I'm doing. But there's some underlying structure that sort of keeps it together in my mind at times, and other times we just let it ride and go where it will. So there's sort of a tension between structure and freedom that we explore a lot. I think it's what sort of a engine of production for us.
Kind of like free range parenting, huh?
Yeah. But I mean, most things I compose start out as improvisational sort of noodles. I work those into some sort of structured piece, but the structure I always intend to have space in it for further improvisation that can be differently realized at different points.
We're going to be right back with Twang Darkly after a message from an independent artist.
Hey, this is Jeff Grossman from Saints 11. Thank y'all so much for tuning in to the ETX ROCKS Show.
All right, and we are back. And if you guys watch this show often, you know that we like to play a little game with our guests. Today we're going to play What the Heck with Twang Darkly, 2/3 of Twang Darkly. And sometimes our guests know what's coming. Usually they don't.
But what the heck?
Yes, exactly. Now, the way this game works is I'm going to ask you guys a few questions. And they might be a little serious. They might not be serious. But what I want from you is I just need truthful answers.
Oh boy.
So, are you guys ready for What the Heck?
What the heck?
All right. This is going to be What the Heck with Twang Darkly. Okay. Now, if someone weighs 198 pounds...
They would crush me.
and they eat 2 pounds of crawfish, do they become 1% crawfish?
For a time.
Well, is that 2 pounds of tails or the whole crawfish? Because it could be less.
That's true. If you order 2 pounds of crawfish, you only eat about 2 ounces of crawfish generally.
That's true. That's
And
fine.
expend an awful lot of energy doing it, so probably there's not a lot of crawfish in you by the time you're all done because you're burning up food as fast as you're putting it in there.
That's a good point. I hadn't thought about
But
that.
it'd be awesome to be 1%, 2% crawfish and that pinch action. Pinch.
So question number 2. What happens if you get scared half to death twice?
I think you're just quarter.
It's like
You know?
fractions.
Yeah, because it's not a... You get scared to death once, you're half. And then you get scared half again, it's just a quarter. So you're only 25% alive.
3/4 scared.
Dead. Death.
Okay. Yeah.
All right. Question number 3.
That's good math.
Question number 3. What's another word for thesaurus?
It's... I saw this... Go ahead.
Thy mighty book of synonyms.
I love it. We finally have an answer to that.
I always look at it as the word that you don't know how to spell, so you have to find another word that you can spell.
We used to have a thesaurus at home when I was growing up called the Family Word Finder. Guess it was like the G-rated version of the thesaurus, perhaps. I'm not sure.
Yes, I learned the hard way how that might be instrumental in parenting. Okay. Question number 4. If a parsley farmer loses a lawsuit, do they garnish his wages?
A parsley farmer doesn't have any wages. Parsley farmer's in debt.
Do they garnish his garnish then?
Do you have an answer for this one?
No. Well, yeah, they do. They garnish.
They garnish the garnish, huh? Now, you guys are familiar with the cartoon character Donald Duck, right? Have you ever seen him wearing pants?
I probably watch cartoons panted. So, yes, I've seen him wearing pants many times.
I set myself up for that.
He nailed it.
Have you ever seen Donald Duck wearing pants?
Again, I always wear pants when I watch cartoons.
It's just like that riff on the guitar. You're just going to stick with that answer.
When you have seen Donald Duck, was he wearing pants?
Ooh, oh man. That's a whole different question.
He's got feathers. Who needs pants when you got feathers?
He always has the shirt and the hat, right?
Yeah. I don't recall the pants.
But he's never wearing pants.
I don't think so.
So why does he wrap his waist in a towel when he gets out of the shower?
Does he do that?
Yes.
I've missed that cartoon.
So when he comes out of the shower, he's got a towel wrapped around his waist.
That's one of the mysteries of the universe.
Perhaps we could create an instrumental ode to that mystery, but I don't have an answer for this one. What the heck?
I'm thinking it's kind of like a white t-shirt situation with the feathers. That's my answer for the question. Last question.
For all the money.
For all the money. Well, you already won the game, but we'll explain how afterward. Okay. If you were to have any songwriter from the past or the present to write the soundtrack of your life, or the song to describe your life, who would that songwriter be, and what would be the title of the song?
It can't be us.
You're a songwriter.
Well, I'm going with me then. And it's going to be called Martian Folk Dance. That's what I got. What do you got?
I think I'd probably want Eazy-E to write it, and it would be called I was going to say Straight Out of Low Cash, but they already got that song. What would Eazy-E's song be about me? I don't want to say any bad words.
It's okay. It's only family-friendly-ish.
Yeah. I guess Eazy-E's song would be about my life is the song about Joel. That's what it'd be called.
Very to the point.
Or AKA Joel's theme.
I love it. Was What the Heck with Twang Darkly. So you guys are going to perform another song for us.
That's right. We're going to do one called Rural Route Pluto.
All right. You want to tell us a little bit about how this song came about?
Yes. In fact, it came about by me seeing the first photographs of Pluto that the NASA released in October of 2016, I believe it was.
That was after its demotion.
I forget the name of the mission off the top of my head, though.
Titan?
You're just making stuff up. You're just trying to confuse me.
It's okay, Pluto. You're still a planet in my book.
That's right.
Mine as well. But anyway, most people probably recall that there was a recent mission that photographed Pluto. And when those photographs came back, I was kind of gobsmacked and wanted to make some music that reflected that sort of feeling of mystery and inspiration and stuff. So there's actually a video that folks can check out online where I've animated some of those original NASA photographs to look sort of like a flyby set to this music as I recorded it then. Recently, since I put it on the Nebula album, it wasn't one of the ones we recorded together. I made Joel start playing it with me too, and Lane likes it as well. So
This is Rural Route Pluto by Twang Darkly. Check it out. And we are back with Twang Darkly. That was Rural Route Pluto. So guys, where can people find you on social media?
Well, they can find us on Facebook under the name Twang Darkly, facebook.com/Twang Darkly. They can go to twangdarkly.com and get to my website. I'm on Twitter, although I get a bit political on there, so that might not be as entertaining for some folks. And there's a lot of YouTube videos, which you can find by going to our website or our Facebook page. Be the easiest way to get there.
So that'll be TWANG Darkly, Twang Darkly. You can find them all over the place. Like you said, YouTube, Facebook. Is Facebook the best way to...
If you want to find their
touch?
schedule and that kind of stuff, that would be probably the easiest way to get there quickly. And if you wanted to contact me, that would be the easiest way for most folks to do it.
Okay.
Do something they have at hand.
And if any venues might be interested in booking you, would you send them the same direction?
Sure.
Okay.
Be a good place to start, at least as far as what I'm willing to say on camera.
And the link for that will be in the description below. So I've got one more question for you guys, and this
What?
might be the toughest one out of the whole interview. Might be the easiest.
Okay.
Who is Twang Darkly?
Well, it's not the easiestly answered question, but I'll give it a few answers. A lot of people think I'm Twang Darkly, quite frankly. They don't know my name, but they know Twang. And it originates, the name, in my mind, from a piece of music I wrote before we ever got together called Twang Darkly Comes to Town. And I had in my mind's eye a desert setting, and this kind of high plains drifter sort of character wandering around, and his name was Twang Darkly. And when we were asked to do that first show and I got us together, raised my mind for possible answers and as to what we could be called, and Twang Darkly was the thing that sort of jumped out at me, and they liked it. Joe liked it, so that's where the name comes from. So
That's who he is.
he is this sort of mythical high plains drifter sort of guy who rummages around in the desert of my brain.
All right.
Very mysterious.
So you can follow along with everything that Twang Darkly's doing at twangdarkly.com. You can also follow along with them on Facebook. Hit the like button on their page. Check them out on YouTube. You're really going to enjoy it. And I'll definitely subscribe to their channel. You won't regret it. So you guys have been tuned in to episode 254 with Twang Darkly. Thank you guys so much for coming out. I've really enjoyed this.
We've enjoyed being here with
Thanks
you.
for having us.
And if you guys are checking us out for the first time, I want to thank you for doing that. You can follow along with everything we're doing. We're on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. That's at ETX ROCKS. If you're watching us on YouTube, thank you so much. Please hit the subscribe button. That helps us by changing the algorithms in YouTube and puts our videos up in the suggested videos more often, which also helps the artists that we have because it gets them more promotion, it gets them more exposure. And it also helps you because if you subscribe to our YouTube, then you will get notifications as soon as we release another episode or we upload another video of live music or whatever we have going on. You will get the first opportunity to check it out. If you would like to contribute to the show, we are completely self-funded, and you can do so at www.paypal.me/ETXROCKS. And every bit of donations that comes in goes right back into keeping the show going, whether it's gas to get to a venue, to interview an artist, or keeping our lights going, upgrading our equipment for sound, video, and things like that. And we really, really want to thank everybody who has contributed to the show. Also, we want to remind you that we have a new webpage. It's ETX ROCKS.show. It has over 10,000 hours of content between interviews and music videos and songs. We've also got a playlist going on the website where you can listen to many of the independent artists that we've had on the show. Definitely check that out. As always, we want to thank you for supporting live music. And don't ever forget,
ETX rocks.
that's right.
car, from the unheralded and the unheard, to the legends and beyond. It's where we all belong. Yes, this is where it all starts. From every genre, from every plane, this is where the music's played. So tune right in, won't you bring a friend? This is where it all begins. Welcome to the show, let the music flow, of every style and creed. And you can bet your socks that ETX rocks, ETX rocks.